In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a super easy summer top. For this project, you're going to need fabric. I went with a non-stretch cotton fabric, some sort of string, or you can make this out of your fabric, measuring tape, scissors, thread, pins, and elastic. We're going to start by measuring out the widest part of our bust and pinning our fabric around that area. If you want a looser fit or a tighter fit, you can make this choice when you're placing this pin. The main goal is that you're able to pull it over your shoulders to take it off. Then we're going to measure the length that we want for the top, and we're going to be folding over our measuring tape to double over the bust because we're going to be creating a second layer. Now with these measurements, we're ready to cut out our pattern. So we're going to use our measuring tape to measure out the width and then also the length for the top. Then we're going to cut the rectangle out in those measurements. We're going to do a French seam, so we're going to sew wrong sides together with very little seam allowance. Try and get the needle as close to the edge as we can, and then we're going to trim away all the excess fabric. Then we're going to iron out that seam, then flip our fabric wrong side out and iron it down again. You don't have to do a French seam, and you can just do a regular seam by placing right sides together and sewing with a straight stitch. But the French seam will give you a cleaner finish. Now we're going to iron down our hem by folding our fabric over 1 centimeter and then folding it again 2 centimeters and ironing it down both times. And then you can sew along where you ironed with a straight stitch. Now moving on to the top of the shirt, we're going to fold our fabric over 1 centimeter and iron that down. Then we're going to measure how much we want to fold over our fabric for the second bust layer and iron that down as well. Now we're going to sew a channel for our elastic at the top of our shirt, leaving open a little gap where we can then insert our elastic. It's important that we're sewing the channel wide enough that we can fit our elastic in between. Then we're going to measure the length of our elastic right around where we want the top to sit, keeping in mind a little extra for overlap. Now we're ready to insert our elastic into the channel that we created. I usually use a safety pin or an old sewing machine needle to feed these types of things through. And then we can pin the two edges of the elastic together. And we're going to go over that with a zigzag stitch. And then you can poke the rest of the elastic into the channel and sew up the gap. The final step is to create the second channel to insert our tie detail. So we're going to find the center of the top and then place 2 pins where we want the 2 ends of the tie to exit. I placed these 2 pins about 2 centimeters apart. Now we're going to sew our channel with 2 stitches, leaving the gap between the 2 pins unsewn. 1 stitch is going to be right along the edge of the folded over fabric, and the second stitch again is going to be wide enough apart that we can insert our string. Then we're going to insert our string through the gap that we left open between our 2 pins. Then we're going to take a seam ripper or a pair of scissors and cut a small slit at the front of the shirt so we can pull our string through to the front. We're cutting these holes right where we placed our pins. Then we're going to pull our string through the hole so it's at the front of the shirt. Then we're going to take a needle and thread and do a couple loops around the slit that we just created to avoid our fabric from fraying. And you're going to do that for both of the slits and then tie it off with a knot. And you're all done! Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, please subscribe.